Hello all, this is Dr. Rajni Sharma, Associate Professor English. I deliver this lecture for Gyandoot 2.0, an initiative taken by Commissionerate College Education Jaipur to help the students during pandemic, but it is still continuing to provide the students standard material. My topic today is 7 Rules for Writing, written by V.S. Naipaul. My objective is to help the students understand this essay and clear all their doubts. The full name of V.S. Naipaul is Vidyadhar Suras Prasad Naipaul. He was an eminent essayist and novelist. He was born on August 17, 1932 in Trinidad, and he passed away on August 11, 2018 in London. His ancestors were Indians who immigrated to Trinidad and they served there as servants. He moved to London in 1954 and married Patricia in 1955. After initial failures as a writer and having undergone phases of depression, Naipaul finally emerged as a successful writer, and he published in 1955 his great work, The Mystic Massive. He won many prizes. Among them are Booker Prize in 1971 and Nobel Prize in 2001 for his work Half a Life. He wrote on the themes of slavery, revolution, guerrillas, corrupt politicians, poor and oppressed people, and other problems of society. The famous works of V.S. Naipaul are An Area of Darkness, India, A Wounded Civilization, A House for Mr. Viswas, and A Bend in the River. First, we shall have a look on the theme of 7 Rules for Writing. The essay is a critique for aspiring writers in journalism. They are suggested to follow an inverted pyramid structure by dividing their writing into 4 major parts that are introduction, explanation, corroboration, and qualification. Writing is a kind of experiment. The writer can change the formula only when he is skilled enough to hook the reader. Naipaul recommends the new writers to avoid long sentences, to write in small words, to maintain a link between sentences, to avoid ambiguous language, unfamiliar words, adjectives, adverbs, and abstract ideas. In the end, he emphasizes to strictly follow and practice the above rules at least for 6 months. After that, a writer may feel free as to transcend the mentioned rules. We shall have a look and we shall explain the important aspects of the essay. We shall have a look on all the 7 rules which are important. Every rule is important in itself. First rule is do not write long sentences. A sentence should not have more than 2 or 12 words. Before these 7 rules, Naipaul is telling his students to follow a formula when they are starting as a writer. For example, the aspiring journalists try their hand at writing news report. They should keep in mind a pyramid structure and divide their story structure into 4 parts, which are introduction, explanation, corroboration, and qualification. He says that he tells his students there are million ways to say the same things. And once they become confident about their writing, they should experiment and break the rules if necessary. And the only thing that matters he is telling is the reader. So, the writer should keep in mind the reader as a shopkeeper is taking care of his customer. As long as reader is hooked, it doesn't matter what formula has been used. So, in the beginning of this essay, he is telling, Naipaul is telling the aspiring journalists to follow a pyramid structure which should be divided into four parts. Every writing should have four parts. Like Aristotle, just as Aristotle says, there must be three parts of any writing: beginning, middle, and end. Beginning must be such that there should be nothing before that, and end must be such that nothing should follow that. So, like Aristotle, he is telling his reader, aspiring writers, to follow a formula which should have four parts. First is introduction, like Aristotle. The second one is explanation, then corroboration, and qualification. So, the first rule which he is telling is, do not write long sentences. Because the beginners, if they are writing long sentences, there are two possibilities. First, they may be misled, they may break the logic, and second is they may commit errors. So a sentence should have only 10 to 12 words. Here Naipaul is making a limit. He is giving a limit to the writers that the sentence should not exceed 10 to 12 words, so that the logic should be continued. There must be it should have a subject and predicate relationship, as well as no error should be committed. The second rule says each sentence should make a clear statement. Because it is a rule that every paragraph should have a topic, a head sentence. In the same way, here Naipaul is saying that each sentence should make a clear statement. Every sentence should have a statement in itself. It should add to the statement that went before. So in this way, there must be cause and effect relationship. There must be relationship between two sentences, and just as A is followed by B, in the same way first sentence should be followed by second. So no gap should be there. A good paragraph is a series of clear and linked statements, and in this way, by adding one by one sentence, a paragraph can be made, and each paragraph should have many sentences which should give their own message. So Naipaul is cautioning his writers, the aspiring writers, aspirants, that they should not commit any error of writing vague sentences, the sentences which do not have any message. The third rule says, do not use big words. Just as big sentences are restricted, in the same way big words are also restricted. If your computer tells you that your average word is more than 5 letters long, if there are more than 5 letters in one word, then he should not pick that word. He should avoid that word. A writer should take only those words which are less than 5 letters. The use of small words compels you to think about what you are writing. So, small words, sometimes what happens, a writer is using big words, very complex words, and in this way, meaning is lost. So, here, Naipaul is telling the aspiring writers that they should use only those words about which they are sure, and there must be no confusion of meaning. The use of small words compel you to think what you are writing. The small words are never misleading the writers. Even difficult ideas can be broken down into small words. Even if complex ideas are there, simple and small words can convey that idea. So the important thing is words. Words should be as simple as they, and they must be small. So, writer is Naipaul is emphasizing simple words and simple sentences and short words, so that the idea, the message can be conveyed and there should not be any confusion, any ambiguity. Even difficult ideas can be broken down into small words. Small and simple words can convey even complex ideas. The fourth rule says never use words whose meaning you are not sure of. Sometimes one is using the sentences or the words about which one is not sure, only to show pedantry, to show knowledge. One is using the words. There is character Mrs. Malaprop, and she is always using wrong words. So here the writer says never use words the meaning of which you are not sure, because it will give wrong message, and or the argument can be just contrary if you are using wrong words. If you break this rule, you should look for other job. If one is not able to use the words, appropriate words, just as Aristotle says in Poetics, appropriateness must be there. Characters must be appropriate, language must be appropriate. So, in the same way, Naipaul says appropriateness is the first characteristic of a successful writer. Words should be appropriate, sentence should be appropriate, message should be appropriate, and right message can be conveyed through right words. So, rather than rather than using complex and very complicated words, simple words should be preferred. The fifth rule says the beginner should avoid using adjectives except those of the color, size, and number. Here, Naipaul is cautioning the writers that they should avoid the adjectives, because adjectives are sometimes marring, spoiling the effect. Some adjectives are allowed, of course, and these are of color, size, and number. Use as few adverbs as possible. So, Naipaul is giving concession in the use of adjectives, because that concession is in the adjectives of color, size, and number. But as far as adverbs are concerned, he is giving no concession. Adverbs should be avoided because they may spoil the effect. Avoid the abstract, always go for concrete. Sometimes what happens, new writers are using abstract words, abstract nouns. Abstract nouns are the nouns which do not have any concrete shape. For example, honesty, goodness, truth, youth, old age, all these are abstract. So, concreteness is the first condition of being a successful writer. If you are using abstract things, if you are expressing yourself in abstract ways, then you can never be successful. And the seventh rule says every day for 6 months at least practice writing in this way. Naipaul says that all the aspirant writers should practice these 6 rules. 7th rule is telling how to use first 6 rules. The first 6 rules should be followed very strictly, very religiously for 6 months, and then that is small words, short and clear concrete sentences. It may be awkward, but it is training you in the use of language. So, Naipaul is again repeating the first 2 rules, which are use small words, use short, clear, and concrete sentences. It may look awkward because they are restricting the freedom of the writer. The new writer wants to write as much in a wayward way, in his own way, willingly. He never wants any restrictions. But Naipaul says to be successful in life, you have to follow some rules. Without rules, there can be no success. So one has to follow it may look awkward, of course, it may seem absurd, but it is training of language. For the training in language, one has to strictly follow the rules so that minimum errors can be committed. It may be even getting rid of the bad language habits you picked up at university by following these 6 rules for 6 months. So there is formula of 6. There are 6 rules, and these 6 rules are to be followed for 6 months. Then only one can hope of getting success. And the bad habit, the bad language which one is speaking in university, that can be get rid of if one is using these rules. So in university what happens, the students are using colloquial language, conversational language. They do not go to deep rules like classics, and they believe in freedom, so they make shortcut. They use those words which are very easy in use. They use them. So here Naipaul is cautioning the aspirant writers, the journalists, that you have to get rid of university language, bad language habit which you have got in university, so that you may be a good writer. Because a good writer does not need any shortcut. He has to use standard language, and he should get rid of the bad language habits. You may go beyond these rules after you have thoroughly understood and mastered them. And Naipaul is just consoling the aspirant writers that this will never be forever. These practice will not go forever. When once they are skilled, once they get proficiency, once they have become efficient in language, they can leave these rules away and write in their wayward way, in willingful way. So he says you have to practice these rules for 6 months, and once you may go beyond these rules after you have thoroughly understood and masters them. So to get mastery, one has to make practice. In this way, Naipaul, in a very sweet and simple way, is telling the writers how to get success in life. Now we are coming to the style of Naipaul. The chapter may be called Mini Ars Poetica. Dear students, Ars Poetica, the art of poetry, that was a work of Horace. Horace has given advice to the aspiring writers what to use, how to get rid of bad language habits, what to use, which figures of speech to be used, and which to avoid, to get loftiness, to get grandeur in style. So he says, the writer Naipaul is using the same thing. He is giving small tips, though it is not a great work. In one page, what he is telling, he is condensing all the rules. In this way, we can say he is like Bacon. Like Bacon, he is using aphoristic style, though he is not very condensed, but he is telling all the rules in a very simple and short way, in a short essay of one page of 7 rules. He is telling all the rules and principles of criticism. Second is simple and easy language. The writer is using very simple language, very easy language, and he is asking the aspirant writers also to do the same. In this way, he is pragmatic. What he is teaching, he is following that first, then he is teaching. Then there is direct address to writers. The style is colloquial, conversational. He is addressing the writers face to face. Direct address is there. There is no hindrance, no second or third person. He is speaking in impersonal way. That style is impersonal also. In first person narrative, he is addressing the readers who are going to be writers of future to follow the rules which he is telling. And the essay is scientific in spirit and elaborative in manner. Scientific in the spirit in the sense that he is giving example from geography, from mathematics, like that of pyramid structure, and he is elaborative also because he is telling how to use the things in this way. We can say Naipaul's style is very lucid, crystal clear, and very simple, and he has capacity to speak a lot in a few words, and that there is very abbreviated. He is using language which is very simple, and even a small child can understand that. Thanks a lot for